So the reason why I took this topic is because, uh, uncertainty doesn't, knock on the door. Like it just announces itself and just makes it a part of your life. So the thing is, last year at this time, and if I move to the next slide over here, like last year this time, what happened was, we didn't foresee any of this. Like we were actually, getting on with our lives itself. The economy was doing good. Everything was pretty much on track. As humans, what happens is, we are careful planners, and when we look at our history of our civilizations and all that, we do a lot of planning, we do a lot of due diligence, and then we set our action accordingly. But what happens is, when uncertain times do come into play over here, that is when, all the planning that we already did just goes off for toss over here. So what I want to start off over here is basically just a brief comparison between last year this time and now. So personally, I found a few differences over here. I'll just read them out over here. So over here, July 2019. Now, in case you want to take a personal leave from office, the go-to reason was basically, I have a cold, I have a fever, I have body pain, I can't make it to office. You sometimes do fake illness over here just to get out of work. Flash forward 1 year, right now over here, the thing is, we can't use this reason anymore, because the moment you use this reason, the first thing you'll get is, get yourself checked, like what is happening, what are your symptoms over here? And then it actually scares you a lot. So over here, the biggest difference when it comes to taking personal leaves in office is basically, yeah, we don't know. Like there's no particular reason over here. But last year at this time, it was pretty simple. Like I have a cold, I'm not feeling well, I have a fever. Second thing over here is basically last year this time. So I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and I always make it a point to watch his movies in the theater. So last year this time, I think that was the first or the second trailer that was released of Christopher Nolan's new movie, The Tenet. So over here, last year this time, I was like, next year this time, I'm going to watch it in theaters. I can't wait for this movie to release. But now, since all the theaters are closed and all that, right now, I've slightly changed the statement. Like I can't wait to watch Christopher Nolan's Tenet online. That is through a digital service or something like that, in my couch. Last year this time, I made plans to visit Nepal this year. This year, yeah, that's not happening again. I have regrets that I should have maybe visited Nepal last year. And the biggest difference over here is the traffic situation. Like last year this time, like whenever I used to step out, especially during the weekends, and when I used to see that, the endless line of traffic over there, like I used to just wonder, like, why can't people just, just sit at home? Like why is there so much of traffic over here? Oh my goodness. But I know it's a hypocritical statement over here, because I am one of the same people who step out and, create the traffic over here. But this year, this time, if you look at the roads over here, if you look at the overall traffic scenes, it's become very low. And there was one personal experience that I experienced. This happened the day the lockdown was announced, and if I remember correctly, it was on a Tuesday or Wednesday. So what happened was, I was at my friend's place, and that was the day that, Narendra Modi went on TV and told that, we'll be going on lockdown for the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then based on where we stand over there, we might have to extend it and all that. So I remember during that time, I was actually traveling from my friend's place back to my home, so I had to cross MG Road, in front of Raheja Towers. And on a Tuesday, if I'm correct, if it was a Tuesday, on a Tuesday, 7 p.m., usually MG Road is nuts. Like there's no way that you can hear honking, you can see endless vehicles on the road. But that particular day, right, there was no one. Like on a Tuesday, 7 p.m., there was no one. And for the first time, I actually felt unsettled over there, because a city that was brimming full of life and full of people, it was very active. And you see that deserted and like no one over there, it was very unsettling. Same thing in the final one, the color of the shirt is fading off. That is, I need to buy 4 new shirts. So when you go to office, right, you need to upgrade your wardrobe as much as possible. Nowadays, you don't have to worry about that. The only worry that you have to keep is basically, do you need a shirt or not? So yeah, these are the major differences, that I found, last year, this time, to when I compare it to now, right now. Does anyone have similar kind of experiences with, that drastic change? And, it's more of like, be careful what you wish for, right? Does anyone in the panelists have this kind of experiences? Like Sushumna?
Yeah, I think shopping is an absolute no-brainer right now. I don't think I'll have to go to buying pants. I think shirts and
Uh-huh.
tops alone will suffice. Make holds good for everybody. So I've heard that a lot with other people around too. Let's also hear from other people in the panelists and the audience. What is it that you've probably found something very similar? Not being able
I
to
think
see the crowd.
so. I think when it comes to trying out new food and new cuisines, I found it very difficult. I was not able to go out to restaurants and try the food stuff. Now I have to order in and be very careful about it as well. I need to ensure that it's coming from a very well-known restaurant and the sanitizing protocols are in place as well. So that has been a huge difference between what I saw last year versus what I'm seeing right now.
And no street food anymore, Tayo, right?
I know.
So sad.
Yeah, washing utensils is a major part of the daily routine.
Which was
Yeah.
not there last year at all. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember visiting Goa, no more anywhere, no travel anywhere, just kind of stuck. Happy seeing Dhruvam, Babla, Fahim with different backgrounds. Very inspiring to travel there.
That is exactly what
Now
it
it's
is.
virtual travel.
Wishful thinking.
I'll wait for the tickets, Dhruvam, somehow if you can help me with one.
I can send you the link to
Just
this. You
two
can get
clicks
there
away.
like in the next 30 seconds.
2 clicks away, yeah.
For people who have children, I think the big change is until last year, you didn't really have to worry about the total screen time, but these days it's all about how much screen time are the children, getting these days, because everything is virtual, everything is online. So that's a big negative, I would say.
I also agree with that, yeah.
And living life without maids was, I mean, that's completely new. So that's a big learning.
We're one step closer to becoming a US or a Euro, UK level of developed country, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
A few responses as well, Ashley. Sunglasses changed to face shields.
Yes, that happened, yeah.
Also, some of them, my mom used to force me to have lunch and dinner on time, but she's like, get out of the house right now and stop. So I think everybody has so many different.
Correct, yeah.
For people at home, their tolerance could probably also be dropping right now.
True, yeah. I know mine is, but then yeah, that's what. So when it comes to personal experiences with everyone, everyone has experienced a change in their lifestyle, in their overall way of living as well. And yeah, that is something that I think we can dwell on, as we go forward over here. Now, as I move forward, the one thing that I wanted to point out over here is this particular pandemic, right? Or this particular problem that we are all facing. It hit us, when no one saw it coming. At the same time, also the speed at which it escalated was actually mind blowing as well. So as you can see over here, I've given a very brief timeline on how the pandemic hit. Like it just started from December 8th onwards. That was when the first patient developed the symptoms of Wuhan virus. And within a span of 1 month, like not even 1 month, China as a country alerts WHO about several pneumonia cases and saying that they don't know what's actually happening over here. Then fast forward, that's when on New Year's, that is the beginning of this decade, that is 2020. On New Year's, Wuhan, the city completely, that marketplace completely shut down. And that is when, after 1 week, that's when they identified that this is a new virus, this is a new kind of coronavirus that's actually mutated from its previous generations. And this is what's happening over here. And we don't have a treatment for it yet, but then it's highly contagious. And the first fatality was recorded on January 11th. So if you see, right, from December 8th to Jan 11th, like this is a span of 1 month, the speed at which it actually completely completely crippled China was actually mind-blowing over here. And we started reading about this in the news, and we started making a note of it. But the thing is, to be very honest with you personally, also I didn't think it would come to this extent. Where India also, or where every other country would be affected by it. Now, in Jan 13th, that is after the first death was recorded, we saw the first case outside China reported in Thailand. And then once, you get one person, traveling somewhere and infecting other people, the thing is, it's very hard to contain this because it's very contagious. And at the same time, Wuhan completely went under quarantine. Rail and air service were suspended. That is, they completely started locking down because the thing is, it started spreading in such a rapid pace that they didn't know how to control it. This is the first time a pandemic of this contagious level had actually hit. And finally, over here at by Jan 29th, that is, it started at the first patient developed the symptoms on 8th of December. And in the span of almost 2 months, we saw that the death toll actually climbs to 132 and 6,000 new cases have been reported. So you can see how fast it escalated over here. Now, after Jan, Feb, and March, that's when I think it started hitting India as well in March. I remember my manager, the first time when I actually understood that this is becoming very serious, like, this is actually going to affect our lives as well. Like, this is no longer just a media story that fascinates us. Was the time, when actually my manager, Gaurav Srivastava, called me, and then he was like, actually, we're all actually going to be working from home for a while right now. And I was like, why? What's the issue? He said, yeah, this is actually becoming an issue over here. Actually, it's actually started spreading in India as well. We actually have to go under lockdown and all that. So there are whispers or there are rumors of the lockdown phase coming in, and it might be implemented by the government as well. So that was the first time when it actually hit on me. And I remember during that time also, a lot of people started getting very unsettled. They didn't know what exactly was happening over here. A lot of people wanted to travel back to their hometown because when you read media stories, you do understand that there's a severe illness that we haven't understood yet. But at the same time also, we need to start, just taking care of ourselves, and we need to just maybe start withdrawing a little bit in terms of social interactions. So that was when I first understood the seriousness of this particular pandemic. And then in the span of 1 week, if I remember, I think during the last week of March, that was when we actually asked all employees to work from home. I remember that that 1 week when the lockdown was kind of like initiated. Normally I live in Koramangala 8th block, and it's a very noisy neighborhood. Like till 2, 3, you can actually hear music playing and all that. But during that lockdown season, right, that first 2 weeks, like I didn't hear anything. It was pin drop silence throughout the neighborhood. Like this was actually eerie. I remember my brother also calling me, and he was telling me that I've only seen this happen in movies, in Hollywood movies also, but then I can't believe this is actually happening right now to us. And yes, it's at first it was very hard to believe. We didn't know what was going on, but then the reality set in. That is, we started understanding that it is what it is. This has actually affected everyone on a global scale, but at the same time also, we are still understanding and we're trying to study it. But one thing was for sure, we knew that this was going to change the way we work, the way we live, the way we interact with each other. Like humanity on a whole might be going to a different direction right now. But that's what the whole discussion is all about over here. This is basically an uncertain time. Like no one can actually point their finger, or they can actually predict what's going to happen after this. It's just basically uncertainty, and we weren't exactly prepared for it. But at the same time, also we're dealing with it as well as we can right now. So I'll just move forward over here. Now, what does this mean for humanity as a whole? Now, there was one, this is a personal parallel that I felt, I was able to make this particular connection. It might make sense, it might not make sense, so forgive me for this. But one thing which I understood over here is that, the way we reacted, not as a country, as a globe, the way we reacted to this particular pandemic was very similar to how, let's say, even a human or even, let's say, your pet falling ill. Now, the first thing that we see over here, right? The first stage is basically the onset. That is basically the virus has infected the body over here. Now, let's take an example for a pet over here. Now, I have a pet dog. Let's say it's fallen ill over here. The first thing the pet dog does is, it first isolates itself. That is basically, it doesn't come near you. It just goes to a corner, sits over there and looks very gloomy and sad, and just starts resting over there. It starts feeling weak and it starts feeling isolated. Like from its behaviors, you can understand that there's something ill over here. Same thing when the onset of this particular pandemic happened, right? Our reaction as a species, as humanity as a whole, was very similar to an individual organism's reaction to an illness. That is, first thing what we did is, instead of the first thing, our reaction closest to the isolation was basically we closed off our borders, And that is we basically minimize external contact over here. Now, the second stage over here is basically understanding the threat. That is basically once the illness uh, has taken itself inside the body takes some time to start reacting. Like it needs to assess what's happening over here. So that's why we have this long hours of bed rest and sleep. Basically we're just resting, we're just waiting for the immunity to start kicking in, and we just want the body to start treating the illness the way it's supposed to be. Same thing when we look at our reaction as a whole. The one thing what we did was, instead of long hours of bed rest, we isolated ourselves. We just, all of us sat at home. Even people who wanted to step out of their homes and wanted to interact with people, they were actually discouraged. Like, no, just stay at home for now. We don't know what's happening over here. Let's just be safe. So the initial 6 weeks was where we actually started understanding the threat. Now, from a personal level, even though we all went into a personal lockdown, we were actually kind of like understanding what to do or what the next steps are. The thing is, scientists around the world have been studying this particular pandemic, this new type of virus, and they've been trying to find a cure for it. But this is what we call as understanding the threat. That is basically we are preparing ourselves to fight this particular threat. Now, the third stage is fighting the threat. Now, that is where we get into medication, or we self-medicate. Same thing over here, as collectively right now, we have actually started human trials when it comes to the vaccination process and all that. We are at the same time also we started social distancing, and we are also starting to treat symptoms with certain medications. But then we are trying to understand, and we're trying to fight the threat depending on how bad or how severe the symptoms are. And the fourth one, finally, and in my personal opinion, I feel we've reached stage 3 over here. Stage 4, when it comes to recovery. Now, normally what happens is the organism, once they are able to fight off the particular illness, it gets better and starts regaining normal functioning. But this is where we have a gray area. This is what is actually causing the uncertainty over here. Like after all of this, after we do find a vaccine, after we do find some kind of medication to neutralize this particular threat, what now? Like, do we go back to normal, or do we just have we started a new kind of a lifestyle, or have we started new kind of social norms? Or that is still unclear, like the actual impact on our society. um, uh, can I get some thoughts over here? Like, Sushumna, like, do you feel that, once, like, let's say down the line, we have a vaccine, it's been, spread across throughout the population and all that. Do you feel that, we would return to our normal routine? Or do you feel that, we would still, start practicing, or we would still practice self-distancing to an extent?
It's kind of very tricky right now to even say.
Exactly.
Sense of being disruptive. I think this has been the epic disruption that we've come across in our personal lives as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm sure for everybody it's been a change in different ways, and all of us might end up coping differently, and we might continue, might not. We might resort to something that we have had a practice of. Maybe we don't. So I'm like in a very in-between kind of a. It's kind of very hard to preempt anything right now.
Okay. Anyone else? Tanya?
I think actually things would selectively change for certain set of people.
Mm-hmm.
In places where collaboration needs to be very high, people will figure out a way to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Places where people who are individual contributors and workers who are very productive when they are in isolation would have kind of realized that they are productive in their own independent setup as well.
Okay.
And in case they don't need a social interaction, they might just choose to continue in the same fashion, because they have also discovered the merits of not commuting, having more personal time and stuff like that. So I think there will be a mix and match to that. I mean, my view is it's not going to go back to the way it was. There's going to be a migration to a new way of looking at things.
Exactly. That's my personal view as well. Like, I feel that we will be setting a new routine for ourselves, a new way of life. Like, we're not sure
certain things will become functional only if it goes back to them, then those will go back. I mean, your retail is going to come back to the way it was. Your logistics, your distribution, people who need to travel, tourism, the economic pickups, they will come back to the way it was. But yeah, I mean, for example, software developers, they anyway work in their own siloed context when they are writing code, right? So they don't necessarily need to be in an office. So
Exactly. Yeah.
interacting. So I think those things you'll see evolving pretty fast.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I also see the same kind of a person view over here. Yeah. We will see some changes, but then, yeah, we have to get there, and we'll see whether everything has changed or not. All right. Moving forward. Yeah, the second one over here is basically the pandemic's impact on the economy over here. Now, this is something that, a lot of companies, the IMF has actually forecasted that there might be a 4 to 5% drop in the overall GDP in the world. Like, there are a few stats that are a little bit unsettling over here. They have given the forecast. There's not much data around, on how much is actually affecting it, but the forecasts do seem to be a little bit grim. And we can see that also around in society over here. Like the moment we went into lockdown, right? Like only essential stores and only essential services were available. All the other businesses were asked to actually go down in lockdown. In terms of the IT sector, or let's say the businesses that we are involved in, since we have the option to work from home, we were able to do that. But there were other sets of industries like the tourism, the hospitality industry, small businesses, retail businesses and all of them have been affected. And, the thing is, in terms of the overall impact on the economy, we're still not clear on how much it's going to impact it. And that's why there are some forecasts saying that, the actual fallout of the pandemic could be felt by the end of this year. And because of that, businesses have started realigning themselves. They've started readjusting their positioning as well. They actually started taking measures right from day one. It's at the moment it was announced. And that is actually a testament to our due diligence that, we are able to foresee what's going to happen. We know it's an uncertain time, but then we are very well aware that this might be a pretty tough period that will be going ahead. But then we have to start, planning, and we have to start realigning ourselves to minimize this particular impact. Now, the impact of economy, still the verdict is out. I think by the end of this year, we'll get to know the full extent of how much is going to impact. But yes, in terms of the pandemic hitting the economy, there will be an impact and that's pretty clear also right now. The next one over here is the common changes across all societies. That is, we're not talking about just only India, but also other countries as well. Like, one thing that we noticed over here, and this is to ensure that this particular virus does not spread easily. It's the first thing that first measure that we implemented throughout all societies, all countries, is basically social distancing. That is basically, don't be too close to another person who may or may not have the virus. Just start taking those precautions. The second thing over here is, one thing what we understood is, and this is, I think, a very, what do you say, a lot of people are actually enjoying this particular movement. That is, we are ensuring that the focus on essentials is there and not on luxury and comfort items. That is basically, we're going to be living in essentials. We don't know what is exactly going to happen over here. The economy also might be hit. Because of that, we have to curb our expenses. But at the same time, also, we have to ensure that, we don't get in, we don't overspend, or we don't get into any kind of luxury or comfort item. We just focus on the essentials for the time being. And a lot of people actually enjoyed that move, going back to the basics, just getting that distraction out of their minds and all that, just focusing only on their relationships, or let's say, very, very essential basic needs. And that's sometimes, last year, this time, our world was very fast paced. Like, we had a lot of stuff going on, in our lives, our social lives, our financial, our family lives, everything. There was a lot of stuff happening, and we had to keep an eye on all these aspects of life. But then right now, since we are dealing with this with this pandemic as a whole, right now we're just only focusing on the essentials part of it. And whatever, whatever goals that you had, like my personal goal of going to Nepal, has to be right now curbed, just to ensure that, we are dealing with this in the right way. And the biggest change that I feel has happened across all societies is the second point over here. That is the focus on mental health. That is, one thing is that, if you're locked in a room, or if you're locked in your house for a long time, as we all were for the initial 6 to 8 weeks, this does take a toll on mental health. I consider myself to be an introvert, but 6 weeks of, and I was actually in Bangalore alone. I didn't have my family with me. My family's back in Kochi. So the thing is, I was alone for 6 to 8 weeks in my flat, uh, alone. Like there was no human interaction. The only human interaction that I had was basically the shopkeeper that I used to get my essential groceries from. That only that one person. And during the 6 to 8 weeks, that particular grocery store guy, even though I didn't know his name before that, he became my best friend. Like I had no one else to talk. Like he had to talk to me. Like whenever I go over there, I had to talk to him. Like that interaction is there. So even an introvert like me understood that we are at the end of the day social beings, and we cannot be completely isolated like that. Like we need to get out, we need to explore it. That's our nature. So that was something that was very clear. And one thing was there, when we're locked down, such kind of mental health issues might happen, especially when it comes to loneliness or depression, because some such kind of when you put into that situation, right, you need support, you need an emotional support. But when you don't get that when you don't get that, if it's not readily available, that's something that does affect the person's psyche. So, and the good thing is that a lot of people actually were able to pinpoint this right from the early days itself. And I really appreciated how the there were a lot of initiatives done by Regalix to ensure that mental health, that we are all actually kind of like in a very healthy frame of mind. Like there was a lot of surveys done, there was a lot of exercise done and all that. There was a lot of initiatives taken to ensure that the person is fine, like not just fine for working as such, but then fine overall, because this pandemic did hit our social lives extremely hard. Now, so the focus on mental health also right now is an important positive development, is what I feel. But other than that, other changes in society, especially when it comes to social distancing and not able to support other businesses through your purchase and all that, is kind of a negative. But then I think, slowly we might be finding a new norm for that. Now, the next one is basically the impact on personal day-to-day life and relationships. Okay, now there are two sides of the coin over here. Now, since I personally isolated myself for 6 to 8 weeks on my own, I really did miss human company. But at the same time, also, I know of people who are actually stuck with their family inside their homes, and they didn't really like it as well. Like they got fed up of each other, and it just basically there are two sides over here. But what I'm trying to say over here is basically, in terms of personal relationships, and in terms of in terms of managing relationships, a personal touch or a personal feel is it's very key and it's very important. Because one thing that I noticed personally was when I was locked down during that time is how much I actually missed my family, how much I actually missed my friends as well. It's not just only the question of just talking to them or interacting to them, but just being with them. In the same case, when it comes to professional to our professional meetings as well. Like initially we used to have this all hands meeting. Everyone used to be together in one room. Like we could see each other's faces and all that, and we could interact with each other. But right now what's happening is we have just exactly as this talk is happening over here, we have a video conferencing tool that is actually, it's not exactly replaced that need for it, but then at the same time it's serving the purpose for it. That is, we are able to conduct meetings, we're able to have those conversations. But are we actually having those truly meaningful conversations over here? It's a question that that I feel is still up for grabs over here. So, Sushma, I think I have one question in the poll, right, regarding uh, team meetings or face-to-face meetings.
Yes. So do you want to launch the poll now?
Yes, I wouldn't mind that.
All right. So I'm going to launch this poll for everybody. One second. One moment. Let me relaunch it.
Oh, we had one more question as well. Yeah, July 2019. Which do you prefer, 2019 or 2020?
Okay. Restart the poll for everybody, including the panelists.
Yes.
So for people who are on chat or who are unable to see the poll, the first question is, which do you personally prefer? Is it July 2019 or 2020? Please do answer in the chat window if you're unable to see it. 2019 or 2020, that's preferred. Second one, what's your preferred mode for team meetings, which is either a video conference or face-to-face meeting, video conference or a face-to-face meeting. the final question. Has social distancing affected your personal relationships? Yes or no? Team meetings, VC or face-to-face? And the final one, social distancing affected your personal relationships? Yes or no? Okay, so we've been about a minute. We have some more responses coming in. Do we wait for another 20, 30 seconds, Ashley?
Sure, we can do that.
All right. So we have a lot of information coming on the chat. Ashley, if you want to take a look at it.
Okay, I can do that.
Very interesting term, at least, ambivert. So there's Rohit who says that he's an ambivert.
Yeah. Yeah, I also consider myself, I've actually changed my description of myself from an introvert to an ambivert right now.
Okay, all right. Great. Let me go ahead and end the poll.
Yes.
Sharing the results on screen for everybody. Okay, so 2019, 84%. We do see a lot of people with 16% of them still feel that 2020 is pretty
better. Yeah, that's what there is a movement towards the essential part, right? Going back to the basics.
You should find out, and they can have another ThinkX section on why people prefer 2020 July as compared to 19. It would be interesting to hear that.
Maybe we can hear from them if they can raise their hand and would like to talk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So moving to the next one, video conference or face-to-face, I think that's 88% is, with face-to-face meeting. I think we have got people who say 2020 is better because of reduced travel. Clifford says that. Now, going back to the second one, 88% face-to-face, which is an absolute no-brainer for us to think much. But social distancing affected your personal life. This is a very tricky one where we actually see 48% of people actually say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And 40% say no.
Yes.
So I guess that's kind of a very close call to it.
Correct. Yeah, the word is still not there.
Yeah, but very close. Yes. With July 2019 and face-to-face meetings have surpassed the usual responses that we've received. So a lot of people are saying that people are getting more sleep. So they want to stay back. They prefer 2020. There's more family time, 2020. Reduced travel again, 2020. So yeah, so that's been, some people do mention that, it has affected personal relationships. Wonder if it's for the better or for the worse, depending on how you're dealing with people at home and outside. So I guess there's been quite a bit of a response, mixed response, which I also see in chat. Which about the personal relationship and how it's affected. Yes.
All right.
All righty. Back to you, Ashley.
Yes. Now, the next section over here is basically the importance of proximity. That is social distancing going to, if it's going to be the new norm, is it a big deal or not? I mean, can we have relationships when we don't have to interact with them on a personal basis, or is it something that can be tackled by technology? So the first thing I wanted to point out over here is there is a psychologist named as Abraham Maslow, and I think everyone knows this, the hierarchy of needs. So I'll just briefly, very quickly also take you through this particular theory over here. That is, for any person to be happy or to feel that they've enjoyed the full potential of their life, the first basic need is a physiolocal need. That is basically you have to take care of your hunger, you have to take care of your thirst, and any physiological body needs. Now, when this pandemic hit us, the first thing that happened over here was this particular table was attacked. Now, the next one is the safety part over here. Since the physiological part has been compromised over here, that will definitely affect the safety part. Now, the safety part over here is basically your home. Like, how secure are you from external threats or, from any kind of harm? And if you're able to, be in a safe, secure setting, or if you're able to if you're able to secure yourself from these kind of threats, that is when we move to the next section over here. That is basically the love or belonging. That is basically your social interaction part of it. Now, once the social interaction part of it is taken care of it, like once you're able to ace that particular aspect of your life, that is when you get esteem. That is, you're able to do well in your job, you're able to get some recognition, and you're able to feel good about yourself. And the final stage over here, that is a stage that very rarely people reach over here, and that requires, and self-actualization is still being debated among a lot of psychologists today as well, like what exactly does it mean to be self-actualized. But the self-actualization only happens when all these four particular aspects of your life are kind of like taken care of. Now, in terms of the pandemic's effect over here, since the first thing that happens over here is you feel threatened for your physiological safety, at the same time also you feel secure for your health as well. So as a result of this, the third part over here also will be affected, and that is where the proximity part of it comes into play. That is, we need to reassess like how important is proximity or personal contact with people. Now, should we prepare for a life of social distancing? Once again, the verdict for this is kind of like, out there, like, we've not exactly taken a call on whether this is actually there or not, but then this is a possibility that we might have to prepare for ourselves. Uh, if you've seen, I don't know if there are many football fans over here, but then the football season has kind of like resumed. And one thing you notice that after each player scores a goal, right, they don't do high fives anymore. They don't hug or anything like that. They do these elbow bumps. That's becoming a new norm. So that is basically, so because of this pandemic and because of this particular situation over here, like even football celebrations, right, are being affected. Like you see that change in behavior happening from an elbow perspective. Now, this is the real question over here. Like, since now it is what it is, right? In terms of, in terms of the situation over here, we can only interact with people who we know are, who we kind of like know are safe, like who do not have the virus. If it's a stranger, or if you have that kind of doubt, normally people will tend to keep the distance with them. But in such kind of cases, right, has technology developed in such a way that, where it can actually replace real world interactions? Now, some of the studies and some of the forecasts that has been given by some of the major publications actually say that, to an extent, technology is actually filling that gap. Now, four examples over here. First thing is, the use of video conferencing tools. Like before the pandemic, we rarely used to get into video calls and all that. But once the pandemic started, now we used to connect with our family or connect with our friends and all that. We started getting into these video conferencing platforms and all that, and we started, conducting our meetings over there. Like we want to see everyone, face to face. At the same time, also online multiplayer gaming have also seen a huge surge. That is basically people interacting and people actually competing against each other on a particular game. It might be PUBG, it might be Valorant, it might be Fortnite, it might be any kind of game. But at the same time, also that particular interaction, right, has actually seen a surge. And I know a few people who are actually happy with that. Like, they just need video conferencing and, maybe multiplayer or online gaming, and just to bring out their competitive spirit and all that. Like, technology has provided an outlet for those particular aspects. Now, the second one over here is basically 20, 30 years, if in case the pandemic had hit, right? First and foremost, if we didn't have the technology or the infrastructure in place to actually combat it in such an effective and in such a timely manner, like let's say 20, 30 years back, if a pandemic had hit, a lot of businesses, including ours, would have actually struggled to sustain itself. But right now, since we've made a lot of progress in terms of internet technologies and other technology platforms and all that, we're able to still still ensure that our work life is not affected. Operations in terms of operations within all companies are also not affected. And you've seen that with the technology infrastructure in place, we can still work, we can still communicate, we can still interact with each other. Now, the third thing over here is, in terms of emerging technologies like AI and deep learning, the one thing is, it has been given a special spotlight because of their impact on other sciences like immunology and medical sciences. Over there, because we can't work together and we'll have to work in silos and all that. Because of that, when it comes to medical sciences and all that, and you can see that also across Bangalore as well, where you see some hospitals being understaffed as well. It's people are struggling to work in it. But then when it comes to finding a vaccine or finding an answer to this particular threat, technological trends like AI and deep learning are playing a huge role in trying to find a cure and vaccine and all that. And the fourth one is
Actually, just
basically,
a quick check here. I think a lot
Mhm.
of them are logging out due to calls and everything.
Okay.
Just kind of letting people know in case they are logging in week.
Oh,
All right.
okay, cool. If you want, I'll just speed it up then.
Sure. That'll
Sure,
be
I'll just do that. The fourth one over here is basically the e-commerce services that, as you had said, since you have an e-commerce site that you can buy stuff from it, get delivered from home and all that, you don't have to actually step out of your home. Since there's a technology in place over there, that'll process your order and get that order delivered to your doorstep. All those technological things are actually in place, and we are kind of like, finding a way to still interact in terms of, uh, purchases, in terms of finance, in terms of other stuffs as well. But the thing is, has technology provided a complete answer to all of our gaps over here? It's still up for grabs. Now, uncertain times. Right now, what we're living is completely termed as an uncertain time. The first thing over here is, uncertainty can be termed as an outcome that isn't in your control. Now, this pandemic, right? It wasn't exactly in our control. We might have been the most healthiest people out there. We were taking, the necessary measures to, make ensure that we're healthy and we're very safe and very clean and all that. But at the same time, also it still impacted us. These factors are not in our control. But then at the same time, also, when we see that there are certain factors that are not in our control, a lot of stress does happen from there. Like, if you feel that you're not in control, especially with your emotions or with your actions, and if you feel that that's not making any kind of positive change towards the entire scene or entire situation as such, normally people do get stressed out over there. So when it comes to uncertainty, it does impact or it does impair humans thinking, and at the same time also the way they function as well. Now, historically, this is where I wanted to take a few what do you say, instances from history. Like historically, as a species, as humanity, as let's say, as a civilization, we've been on Earth. If you look at the entire span of Earth over here, I think we are a very recent species, but at the same time also we face a lot of uncertain times. Now we do see a lot of species going extinct as well, right? Just because of climate changes or because of environmental changes that is affecting their way to live. But with us humans, right, with us humans as a whole, the one thing that we're doing over here is we not only identify these threats, but then we somehow overcome them. Now, just four instances over here when it comes to uncertain times. World War II is considered to be the most darkest time of our history. But the thing is, since World War II happened, that is when all the countries around the globe decided to have a central organization that will kind of like govern everything, and that is what led to the United Nations. So there is a silver lining for all of these dark times over here. So even though World War II was a very tragic incident that happened and that shouldn't have happened, but at the same time also it led to something very positive, such as the UN and the WHO being uh, you know uh, the WHO being instated in terms of in today's society. The second one over here, same thing in terms of India's struggle for independence, right? Before independence, we were actually a set of warring tribes, and we were actually princely states. But due to the colonization of British and finally our subsequent unification to fight against and to free ourselves from the British Raj rule, we actually finally were able to come together as a country. So that was a positive outcome as well. Third thing over here is basically the smallpox outbreak. Now, this was a very scary outbreak because we didn't have control over the kind of vaccines. We didn't have control over the outbreak of it. But at the same time, also, we actually stuck to our guns. Medical scientists and doctors from around the globe, they actually they actually came together, and then they decided to eliminate this threat once and for all. And that's when that's when vaccination as a concept was actually implemented throughout society, and because of that, smallpox as a disease has been eradicated. And the fourth and final one is basically the fossil fuels, that our dependence on fossil fuels, we were able to have the foresight to understand that, okay, this will get over one day, so we need to find other means for it. So when we are faced with uncertain times, right, the thing is, it's uncertain, we don't know what's going to happen. But at the same time also, that does lead to somewhat what some would say an opportunity to do something different. Now, when I move towards the next time to the next slide over here, I'm trying to drill it down to a personal story over here. That is, when particular people faced really uncertain times. Now, this is not anything related to the pandemic as such, but at the same time, it's related to a personal uncertain time. Now over here, this movie was a bullet movie. It was basically the story of Chris Gardner, who was a struggling father, who was trying to raise his son on his own, but at the same time also he was finding hard to get an employment. The second one over here is basically Solomon Northup. His how he was sold to slavery. It was uncertain times for them, but at the same time also, once they were able to overcome it, they found themselves to be in a better place overall. And the third one over here, and this is my personal favorite over here, is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Now, Viktor Frankl is a psychologist who actually was in a concentration camp during World War II for 3 to 4 years, and he was able to survive it. And the thing is, he started using a few mental tricks. He started not giving up on life as such, because over there in concentration camps, your entire dignity, your personal dignity, your human dignity, everything is stripped off, and there is no reason for you to continue as such. But Viktor Frankl was able to find some, meaning for life and still able to go forward as such. So these are like personal studies, personal times, during uncertain times. When faced with uncertainty, you have either two options over here. That is, first is you can actually kind of like stagnate. You don't have to do anything, or just keep on doing what you really like to do, and just keep the faith and just power through it. Now it's been 4 months now. We're coming towards the end of the session over here. Now what now? Well, one thing is, one can argue that uncertainty brings out the best in us. That is, in terms of, uncertain times leads to unexpected but positive outcomes. Now, the first kind of, instance that I'll take back is, World War II again. Even though World War II happened, after the aftermath of World War II was an international agency that would, kind of like, ensure that such kind of a war would never happen, would mediate between any kind of, rifts between countries and all that. And that was kind of like established. And that was the first step of globalization, where we started seeing ourselves as one, instead of different countries, but as one particular civilization as such. And same thing over here when it comes to the personal parts of it. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, right? Both of them are pioneers in terms of in the IT industry and in terms of technology. Both of them, when they were studying during college times, they didn't know that whether they would drop, whether they would actually get a degree or not. But the thing is, they persevered and they started continuing to do what they thought they were good at. And because of that, they were able to overcome these uncertain times. At the same time, also they were able to be, trailblazers. That is, setting examples for other companies to follow. And right now, that's there. Microsoft and Apple have been a huge giants. But then it was made from people, who faced very uncertain times.
ये भी तुम्हारा है वो मैं नहीं बट वो नहीं उड़ती है वो ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट उड़ती है
Okay. Now, look for new opportunities during uncertain times. Now, when our goals become unclear, right, do we still need to believe in the process? Now, according to a leading speaker named as Adam Alter, one thing what he says is, goal setting over here is a hamster's wheel. Learn to set systems instead. What he's trying to say over here is, suppose if you have a talent, like suppose if you know that you're good at something and you know that, you can maybe, this is something that gives you joy. This is something that you feel that you're meant to do over here. You just keep on doing it. Even though the outcome might be very unclear, you just keep on staying true to your core values and just keep on doing it, regardless of how the outcome would be. And most of the time what happens is it turns out for the best. The best example over here will be basically Enzo Ferrari. Now, Enzo Ferrari is kind of, everyone knows the Ferrari brand, right? But initially, he started off as a car manufacturer for Alfa Romeo. He was supporting them for racing cars and racing drivers and all that. During the Second World War, Mussolini actually converted his particular factory into a production house for weapons and other kind of military equipments. Now, the thing is, if you are in that position, right, in that uncertain time where the government over here right now has taken your factory and just started mass producing based on its particular agenda, you do feel a lot of stress and you do feel like giving it up because you feel like your dream is being snatched away, something that you can't control. And things would have been very different if, let's say, Italy or let's say the Axis, the force won the war. It would have been a very different scenario. So Enzo Ferrari did face that thing, but during even those uncertain times, right, he still stuck true to his goal. That is, he was still developing very good engines. He was still developing very good cars that could be. He was still trying to push the boundary when it comes to car development and when it comes to personal transportation as well. So by the time, when he was able to see himself out through the uncertain times, he decided to build cars under his brand name. So for him, it became an opportunity. After this uncertain time, okay, then why not? Why don't I just build cars on my own? And that's when he converted his factory back. He actually moved his factory back to another location, and he started building cars under the Ferrari brand name. So over here, even though this parallels,
Actually, sorry to kind of interrupt.
Yeah.
I think there are quite a few people who are to log out right now.
Okay, cool.
Kind of, if we could, any last thoughts around it? And
Yes, this is my parting message over here.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is the final slide over here.
Yes.
Okay, the final slide over here is basically be water, my friend. That is it. Just be flexible. Right now, we are going through very uncertain times as well. But then at the same time, also, we know what we have to do. We have to stay true to that course and just keep on doing it. Like history has taught us one thing is that, when it comes to uncertainty, just keep on doing your thing. Just do not compromise on your values of what makes you, happy. Just be water. That is what the parting message that I would have over here.
Yeah, great. That's a great thought.
Yes. Yeah, sorry for taking a lot of the time. I just didn't keep a track of it.
Yeah, no problem. We started a bit late though.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time, and everybody who's been there so long with all of us. Thank you so much. I think uncertainty and, something looking positive out of it. We all are looking, forward to being able to manage and cope with it better. Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you, everybody, for joining in again. And have a wonderful weekend ahead.
Thanks, Ashley. That was a great session. Very
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Good
thanks,
one,
Tanya.
Ashley.
Yeah.